Hi, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm here with Sam Anthony, who's with yournews.com. I've written a few pieces for them, and he has some exciting things to share with us about news the news site he has. Go ahead, Sam.
Sure. Well, Andy, thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
You're welcome.
So for your audience, I do want to let you know what we do. Your News is as yournews.com is the domain, but it's a hyper local news platform that's local in every city in the United States. We do both local news, state news, regional news, national news, all across the United States. As everybody is aware, the legacy media has a massive problem, and some people think they're going to go out of business because they're lying. It has nothing to do with it. As Andy and I just had a conversation off air, the the reason they're going out of business is because the way people consume information has changed. That's the real reason. So the ad week numbers came out, and it was for first quarter, January, February, and March. This was a month and a half ago or something like that. And the the numbers were abysmal for the viewership for cable news, which everybody knows. It's not a secret. You could see the layoffs. But the real numbers was that I thought was newsworthy was the demographic between 25 and 54, which represents a massive portion of the population, at least 30% of the population. That number of viewership for cable news for 3 months, all combined, was 500,000 people. And
Wow.
that's abysmal. Okay, so here's the thing, it's not like they're not getting news. You ever hear of a phone? TikTok? Did you ever hear of Instagram? Did you ever hear of Rumble? Did you ever hear of YouTube? I mean, there's so many different places they could get information, and they have options. And so the way that I grew up consuming information is not the way the younger generation does. And I don't know if you have kids, Andy, but I have a kid. I have two grandkids. I'm at his house. I'm like, "Where's the TV?" Well, we don't have a TV. What do you mean you don't have a TV? How can I watch golf? Well, how do the kids watch cartoons? Well, we have a tablet and we have an app for that stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
okay. So it's just the way it is. I mean, and for those of you, I don't think there's anyone out there that's ever said a telegraph. Have you, Andy?
No.
Okay, want to know why? Because somebody created a phone. That's the reason. There's always something that replaces something else. And the internet has really transformed a lot of different industries. I mean, it's just not just news. I mean, I was in the brokerage business for years. I don't know if you buy stocks at all, but there's no more commissions on any stocks. It's all free. Everything went to manage money. I mean, you could actually have an account and just hit purchase, and there's no cost. So literally, you went from a fee-based thing to nothing, and it's transformed that industry. And a lot of people left that industry. What else has it changed? How people can, buy goods. You ever hear of Amazon? I mean, give me a break. Amazon shows up at my house every freaking day.
Hmm.
So it's like we have our own delivery person for everything we need. And so all your products exist. Well, my wife does it, so it's on the phone, but you're online and you just make your purchases and they show up at the door. You don't even have to leave. I mean, look, if you need something right now, you got to run to the store. But for the most part, the life has been more convenient. It's all due to technology. So, the internet has, decentralized a lot of different industries. I mean, one in particular is the investment banking industry. And certainly now, we live in a world, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say, because I'm sure your audience would agree, the reason that this country's in the mess it's in today is directly because of the news media, because they weren't telling the truth and not telling you anything, and just not saying a word about the Hunter Biden laptop and stuff like that. Russia disinformation. I mean, you're really lying. You're not telling the public. You're not keeping them informed. And it's pretty obvious that there was a political agenda, right? I mean, they're
Oh,
basically a
yeah.
talking piece for the Democratic Party. And then you have not only government influence, but you have advertiser influence. And I'm talking about the pharmaceutical companies. So, Andy, were you kicked off YouTube?
Twice. Just
Okay.
for the guest I had. Not. Not even for the actual content, just for the people I brought on.
Yeah, don't you think that's crazy? So just having an honest conversation and putting information out, I have a lot of people on my platform, and there's one in particular in 2019, he was making 50,000 a month on YouTube, and he had a big audience, like 800,000. Okay. And he was telling the American people the truth. Here I'm bringing on so and so, and so tell me, you're an expert in this field. Tell me what you found. They kicked him off. So his income went from 50,000 to zero. Think about that, right? And so why did they do this? Well, I'm going to tell you the reason why. I mean, we certainly all know, but it was to control the narrative. So you had government influence controlling everything. Hell, now we found out that the FBI was actually in Facebook. They actually took our tax dollar, our people that were employed with our tax money, moved them into Facebook, and they were deleting posts. So what does a communist party do when they conquer another country? The first thing you do is you control the press.
Yeah.
What did our country do? First thing they did was they controlled the press, and they controlled all social media to get all that information out. They're screwed now. And the reason is, remember, liberals don't create anything. They destroy everything. That's their whole MO. So the problem is the mainstream media, which is the old guard, was the only thing they had. Okay. And they certainly had, the tech giants, but now they don't have X anymore because Elon Musk acquired that.
Hmm.
But they're not creating anything. So what happened was innovators, conservatives, entrepreneurs filled voids, and that's why Rumble's there today. Okay, you have these voids that are filled, to try and solve the problems. But now what's going to happen is the old entity goes away. These people have nothing, nothing. So you're really screwed at this point if you're trying to push an agenda, because all that's your talking points are all going to be gone. Look, I run a platform that's a free speech platform. We allow both sides to be heard. I'm going to tell you something, Andy. I've been doing this for a lot of years. I never get any liberal content on my site. And it's not because it's uninvited. It's because they don't want their content around stuff that makes sense.
Right.
That's the 100%.
Yeah.
That's why who was the woman that they brought onto The View and they kicked her off after a day? What was her name? Who was a
Oh,
conservative?
I don't know. I can't watch that show.
Oh,
I
I
know
know,
what you're
but
talking about, though.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? So they all lost their minds. I'm going to tell you why. Because you had the nut jobs talking to the audience, telling them how bad something was, and then she stands up and speaks and says, no, here's the reason why. And it actually made sense. And everybody went, oh, that makes sense. And then they said, get her out of here. You know how long it's taken us to brainwash these people into believing this stupidity? Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense, but okay, Whoopi's saying it. I guess it must be true. And then somebody stands up and says something to counter it that's actually logical. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, we got to get rid of that bitch. Rid of her now.
Yeah.
That's a problem. So this is why they do it. This is why they get rid of it. So they're in for a rude awakening.
Definitely.
Anyway, hence the what we're doing, because what our platform is, we're local news in every city in the United States, but the model's not a new model, Andy. It's the exact replication of the physical world. Like, it's how the news business gets put together,
Mhm.
minus all the print and distribution costs, and it puts the power to press back in the hands of the people. So most people have read a newspaper, but or watched TV or radio, but they've never really worked at a news organization to understand how it works. So I'll give you the 30-second version. Here's how the media industry works. People that have news will send what's called a press release to the media. If it's a nonprofit and they're having an event, they send a press release to the media in that market. News organizations are aggregators. Matter of fact, every news organization on planet Earth is an aggregator. All the stuff flows to them. They decide what they're going to air or publish. Most of it goes in the garbage, especially the bigger the market you're in, the less they air or print. So what we are is an aggregator of the identical content. We just have the ability to print it all because there's no cost, and we can organize things by subject and geography, meaning I can make your kid's Little League game appear in the sports section in one city. I can make the high school football game appear in the sports section in one market. Markets are defined by how we watch TV today, the television DMAs, everybody knows Chicago is New York's number one, LA's number two, Chicago's number three. There's 210 of those. So we can make it appear to the market. If Governor DeSantis signs a bill into law in Florida, does anybody give a crap in the other 49 states? No. It's politics news for Florida. Okay. And then obviously the Monday Night Football game is national news sport. So it's how we distribute information. So what we are is an information aggregator with massive scale. And what we're doing is we're bringing all the country's information under one umbrella and creating one uniform media. What I just described to you, whoever does it, is the next media mogul, the next Rupert Murdoch of the space. Now, what that's not going to get you is the bank robbery, the car crash, the city council meeting, high school football game, all the hard news, right? The stuff that people want to hear about. So this is where, you know how, Andy, YouTube has a monetization model? And the way YouTube works is first, I think you have to create an account. And once your audience gets big enough, then they monetize you. Like you have to probably request to be monetized. So what we do is we take a journalist that's going to write news stories. We monetize them. They could cover whatever, the high school football game, the city council meeting. They write the story. They submit it to us. We publish it to the subject, sports, business, politics, and the geography it's relevant to. What they do is they share it on their social media pages to their followers. The followers click the link to come into our site and consume it. We sell the ads. They get a percentage of the ad revenue that appears around the content. So we're selling all the advertising for them.
Oh, yeah,
Okay?
great.
Because remember, in a newsroom, there's always this story you hear, you know, where you have one side of the newsroom is the content creators and the other side is sales. And both of them tell each other, you know, without us, you're not going to be here. The other one says, without us, you're not going to be here. Well, they're both right. Okay. But you need one for the other. And so it's the content that drives the readership. So the way the advertising works in the world we live in today on the internet is there's a way to quantify results, and advertisers know it. And what they want to do is they want to know exactly what they're getting for their money. So this is why on YouTube, if you have 100 people watch the show where an ad appeared, you're going to make money for 100 views on that ad. If you had 100,000, you'd make a lot more money. So it's up to the content creator to produce better content that draws a bigger audience so they can make more money. But YouTube sells the ads. Your news sells the ads. So if you're producing content that doesn't resonate with people, that they're just not interested in, you're going to have less opens than somebody that has something that's compelling. I mean, a perfect example is if somebody's Little League game is going to be less, there's going to be less people reading that than the high school football game in a market, right? Because it has more mass appeal. I think that's the best example. Okay. So you want to focus on things that people care about and that have a bigger interest. So we monetize news reporters. And just like YouTube, I don't know if you know this, but 80% of the money is made by 20% of the people at the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
Also, how many YouTube channels have you ever visited where the last posting was 3 years ago? And I'm going to tell you why. It's not because they were making so much money they couldn't put it in their bank account anymore. It's because they really just got tired of it because they weren't making any money at it. Okay. And by the way, Rumble, I think YouTube has, I saw a number, 114 million channels, but they really only have 20% of them active. So 20% of them are really the ones that do something. Same with Rumble. Rumble has a couple 100,000, but only 20% of them are active. So what we're doing, and I haven't shown you this, but on LinkedIn Navigator, if you look up freelance journalists, there's almost 500,000 people that call themselves freelancers. And if you don't know what that is, that means I don't have a job. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what I do is fill a void. And now in the last 6 months, we've brought on 800 news reporter. You saw it, $7.99, right?
Yeah.
So today we'll hit over 800 for sure. But I market to them. They sign up, and then we start bringing in content. And that content is what drives the traffic to the site, which is then supported by advertisers. Make sense?
Yeah.
it's the sheer scale. So what we're like, I have a goal this year. This goal is the goal this year because you saw it. We're at call it 800 people. I want that to be between 4 and 5,000. That puts me in terms of boots on the ground news reporting, the largest media company in the world.
Mhm.
Only because I thought it was going to be. I'll just tell you who it is. AP is the biggest, and they've got about 3,000.
Wow.
Yeah, they used to have a lot more. But with all the downsizing, they let a lot of people go. I would have thought it would have been a lot more, and I would not have thought it would have been AP. Reuters has about 2,500. So they're probably within a few from Reuters, So that's why I say around 3,000 because they've got a few more. Um, so it's what I do is a disruptor in the media space, if you will. And ultimately, once we've aggregated all the content, you get all the readers. Once you get all the readers, you get all the advertisers. The game's over. Everyone will give me their content freely. They just need to know we exist. So, this is why I keep telling you the future of news will be a hyper local news platform with that social component where the public can interact, and it'll have a monetization model for news reporters where they can earn money, and a self-service ad platform you could target to one zip code and everywhere in between. And we're the only players, Andy, the only ones.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I've got the app on my phone, and I suggest all my viewers that they get the app on their phone as well. I've also written a few articles for your news. So it's a great site, folks. I really like it a lot. Is there anything else that you would like to say about it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I want to let you know something. This should have been done a while ago, but it'll be finished. What's the date today? 19th. So in the next roughly 10 or 12 days, we're putting a follow button where you could follow any individual
Oh,
or
wow.
any category. So what'll happen is, let's just say for the sake of argument, you have 10,000 people on X. And whenever you post a story, you share it to those people. When they come in, by the end of the month, they'll be able to follow Andy Z, right? So they'll be able to hit the follow button. And then now when you post a story, so over time, let's say those 10,000 people are also following you here. Well, you no longer need to share it over there because the moment you post it here, they'll all get the alert. Whether it's desktop, it'll either be desktop or mobile app, right?
Hmm.
And all of a sudden it basically will just rack up money. So what's going to happen is over time you're going to have people getting 10, 20, 50, 100,000 followers. And when they submit an article and it gets approved, it immediately alerts whatever their follower base is, which could be 100,000 people, and all of a sudden that article just made them $500,
Wow.
just like that, right?
Hmm.
So that's one piece. Second thing we're doing, because people are always telling me, "Are you growing?" Well, we brought on 800 news reporters in the last 6 months. Yes. Second piece I'm doing, which won't take that long once we get this finished. This one is a big deal because it enhances the ability for content creators to make money, and it also drives more traffic, which attracts more ad revenue. So to me, this is really important. But the other one's going to be we're opening up a Canadian version of
Oh,
your news.
awesome.
Yeah, because I have a lot of Canadians that are around here and they keep asking me because I don't know if you know anything about Canada, but it's
Oh,
complete
yeah.
state controlled media.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of information that they're putting out on our platform. We put it in world news, but ultimately all that stuff needs to go to Canada.
Right.
So we're tying it in with the United States. So it's going to pull all the US.
Sorry, folks, we had a small technical difficulty, but we're back with Sam Anthony, and he was talking about your news. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so I believe where we left off, or what you believe, was the content creators, right? And how they can earn money,
Hmm.
which this is where everything's going. I mean, it's the future, and the reason is because the internet, like I said earlier, is quantifiable. So, advertisers want to know exactly what they're getting with their for their money, and so the people that drive the biggest traffic to the ads are the ones that get the most rewards, right? It should
Right.
be how it works. Okay. So It's just the way it is. The people that have the most traffic on YouTube get the most money. So with our product, we're very broad in scope. So I could have somebody submit an event, and then we could do it in a city, a county, a market. So it could be a fair, or it goes in the events or entertainment news. It could be local sports, business, politics. It could be all kinds of things. But it's really it's really how broad we are, because anybody can do news, but not local news in every market. So this is why you have the Chicago Tribunes, who covers Chicago, the Miami Herald covers Miami, the Washington Post, which is more mass appeal because it's national in scope, but the stuff happening right there in Washington. The LA Times. I mean, does anybody care about the LA Times other than people in LA? Is my point. I mean, they do LA news. So we're the local paper in every city in the United States. And then I try and it's almost like we're the local paper with USA Today wrapped around it. So a big story that happens in LA, I have boots on the ground. So they're covering that story, but we may make that front page news national. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
that's called Associated Press. I mean, that's what AP is, right? I mean, everybody could share stories through the AP. So this model's the exact replication of the media industry, and it has one component where the public can interact and contribute to the narrative locally, and in essence, put the power of the press in the hands of the people. So, like I was explaining to you, which let me share my screen so I can at least show
Sure.
people. So
Go
you get
ahead.
we'll see if let me lift this up a little bit so I could hit shares. Okay, so I don't have one open, so hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I'm gonna open up a tab for your news here.
You know what happened in Buffalo is we had a local newspaper and they moved to Ohio. They trucked the papers in from another state, not even
They
printed.
they move the paper to Ohio,
Yeah,
or
but they
oh,
shipped the papers in from Ohio. They
I
closed
get
their
it.
office and they put a fence around it, Sam.
Yeah, so the reason is you have all this mass consolidation where people are buying up all these little entities, and they're milking it for everything they got. So you lose a lot of the local reporting.
Hmm.
It's really kind of just more regional stuff or even national stuff. It's kind of like, what's happening in radio. You have all these conglomerates that come in and acquire everything. They get rid of the physical cost of the local people, right? And
Yep.
they just distribute from the top down. So it's much cheaper to do it that way.
Right.
That's the reason why. The local radio stations, that are news stations, most of them got rid of their news directors and their stringers. They don't have them. They're a cost, and with money being sucked out to the internet, that's the money goes where the people are, and there's more people on Instagram than there are reading the local paper. That's the whole point. So the money goes there, and that's how it works. So what we are is that model on steroids. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
When you log into our site, tell me when you see what I'm looking at.
Got it.
Okay. So it says Palm City, Florida, because it geolocates me. Some people block it and you just click change your location, enter your zip code, it'll take you to that city. So our website looks like a news website, correct?
Right.
All right. And then, so it's not very hard to navigate. You mouse over national news, and if you can't figure out how to find golf or horse racing or boxing, you're blind. Okay, because it's right in front of you. So if you want auto racing news, you click auto racing. If you want golf, you click golf. So this is NASCAR Deep in talks to bring street race to San Diego and Carson Weber. So we have our own news reporters that do NASCAR, or not so much NASCAR. I think they do what is it called, Formula One.
Hmm.
And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Like one of the gentlemen even does a podcast. So whereas your podcast may be geared towards maybe political, some do uh, cooking shows, right? Some do home and garden shows. This guy's podcast is auto racing. This is what he does for a living. So all of his people are coming to me to consume his content. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's awesome.
and so all he does is share that link. Here's the social media site. So he'll share that out on his social media pages. And I think I was telling you, this is Derek. Here's his page. This is his author page. You have one too.
Yep.
So this is going to be every single thing that Derek has submitted to our platform right here.
Wow.
And so all those links are an actual business for him because every time one gets clicked, it puts money in his account. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
Pretty freaking simple. So when he promotes it, he goes, "No, now we're going to put a follow button for him," which I think we discussed the last time. So when his audience comes here and they click follow Derek on our site, whenever he submits, it'll automatically send an alert to all those people. But the reason I was showing you this is what makes me unique, is we do local news. That's the key. So I just clicked on local news in Palm City, which for the most part is the market. Arrest made in 2022 Fuentes murder case. And this is DeSantis, Florida driver could legally flee rioters, which is a state story. And this is Democrat Florida rep wants to give amnesty to every illegal. Who the hell is that? Maxwell Frost is calling for a pathway to citizenship. Well, okay, I don't know how he even survived in Florida.
Yeah.
But this is all either state stuff or local stuff in my market. Make sense?
Yeah.
Florida charter captain sentenced for shooting, poisoning dolphins near Panama City. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just bounce you to a couple of locations, 7101, so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll do local top stories. So now I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Mitchell EMS chief addresses Yankton County Commission on ambulance challenges. Fatal rollover accident claims the life of a Burke man. Now, by the way, these are all today's news. Okay. Vermillion earns cardiac ready for community designation. I'm going to scroll down the page. This is local news, but they're from my news reporters. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll do another one. I don't know a ton of zip codes. I know 6. The bigger the market, the more stuff we get. Okay. So like, there's 10 million people in Chicago, so you're going to get more stuff. So this Chicago City Council passes controversial teen curfew amid public outcry. Former Illinois teacher and coach now faces 52 additional charges of shocking student sex abuse. Signs executive order launching race-based reparations. Can you believe this? This guy's actually going to give people money. He wants to give reparations to the blacks. I mean, so what if I don't want to pay it? Do I have to? These people are out of their minds. But anyway, this is boots on the ground doing local news in the city of Chicago. I don't have, well, I should say I don't have one. Let me see if I can find one. I'll do 94105 San Francisco. 94105. I don't ever look at this stuff, but we'll see. Local edition top stories. Here. Newsom attacks Republicans on violent crime. Data tells different story. California officials set to quietly, what does it say? Officials say to costly for state to quickly declare election winners. So they need time to change the numbers. That's exactly what it means. So the point is this is either going to be California stuff, which could run to the state, or it's going to be San Francisco stuff, because we could drill down to a specific geography. And I'll do one more New York, 10005. Just make sure something here. Okay, and I'll hit go. And this should say New York, and I'll just do local edition top stories. And you're going to see New York mayor candidate arrested by ICE for interfering with federal immigration. What is this? New York City Dems rush to convince voters they're tough, defy party's weak reputation. Numerous anti-ICE protests, arrests in New York. Illegal alien accused of attempted murder using daylight knife. So all of this is New York-based news. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So you're still going to have, like, if I go to national news auto racing, well, this is all national news. Okay.
Yeah.
It's how we distribute information. But we have the ability to drill down to a local story and just do one in one city. And then how that works, you'll see here, there's 4 articles that are waiting for approval. But the world is set up today. You have markets. Where are you located?
Buffalo.
Okay, so we have a now this is the Buffalo, New York market.
Hmm.
See, I'm clicking that, which could be 10 counties. It could be 20 counties. Whereas you could have, I think there's one in Erie, Erie, maybe. I'm not sure yet. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's Pennsylvania. Hold on.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
New York, which is not the state, it's the New York market, which is all 5 boroughs.
Hmm.
Okay. So you could run things to a market. You could run things to, it doesn't matter here. I'll do Florida. This is all the zip codes for the state of Florida. So
Hmm.
if I click add, anything I'm doing gets assigned to the state. And if it's Governor DeSantis signs bill into law, see how I'm checking politics? That means whatever I'm doing is going to go to the politics section in every zip code in the state of Florida. If I wanted to be more granular and let's say just put it to Palm Beach County, then it just see all the zips for Palm Beach. And I could hit add and grab another one. Or in particular, I could say one city. See how I just picked Boca Raton?
Hmm.
So if it's somebody's little league game, it goes to sports. If it's a city council meeting, it goes to politics. And here's the real interesting part. Watch what I do. You see all these zip codes down here?
Yeah.
See how I'm removing them?
Oh yeah.
Okay. As an advertiser, they could pick whatever zip codes they want and then they run it around the type of content. So if you're selling golf clubs, you're going to want to run it around golf. And you could select the geography, which could be a city, could be a zip code. So like I'll give you an example. Let me go back let me stop sharing. So you take a city like Boca Raton, which is probably 20 minutes from US 1 all the way out to 441 because you're doing 30 miles an hour. You got to go through past the mall, all the lights, right? So, but like Scottsdale, Arizona is the same thing. It's freaking skinny. It's like this, but it's like a half hour from one end to the other.
Hmm.
Well, nobody's driving a half hour to get like their kid an ice cream cone, right? I mean, there's like 30 you could stop at on the way. So the point is, this is why Valpak, when you get the Valpak to the house,
Yeah.
and you as an advertiser, I could say, make this coupon go to these houses and these zip codes because that's the ones that are going to redeem them. You're not going to take 130 miles away. Well, with our product, the customers can target just the zip codes they would actually pull from.
Mm.
It's like a Valpak model. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is awesome. When I first heard about this, I was amazed. It's a great concept.
Yeah, and the customer base, because of it, the closest model to me is going to be Facebook, not because we're in that same business, but they're in the business of selling advertising around user-generated content. You know what we do? We sell advertising around user-generated content. Different content, but it's just the same business. So they can target by zip code. So the point is, if they can generate a couple billion a quarter, so could we.
Oh yeah.
Because your customer base is everybody, as long
Hmm.
as it's B2C, right? So there's, I'm going to guess 20 million businesses that are B2C in the United States. I know there's 300 million online e-commerce websites. Somebody could be selling horseshoes, somebody could be selling hula hoops, somebody could sell golf clubs, doesn't matter, right? They don't care. They drop ship. So you're talking about a customer base in just the United States of literally hundreds of millions of businesses. You can't put them all on the site, but from the advertising inventory, ads are on a best bid basis. So I want you to grasp this. The Buffalo, New York newspaper has a website, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so have you ever been to it?
Yeah, but it's they cut you off once you pay for it.
Yeah. Oh, you got to pay. All right.
You,
Well, here's the thing. However many ads they could put on one of their pages, like their sports page, like you saw the ads around the auto racing or whatever it is, we can do in one zip code, Andy.
wow.
It's like having 70,000 different websites,
Mm.
but one website. So everything's driven out of a database.
Hmm.
So the data, which could be an ad, gets assigned to a specific geography. Then when somebody queries that page, it says, where does this ad want to go? Right here. Well, wait, is there somebody that's paying more for that spot? And if there is, that person trumps that person. Well, you want to know who that's going to be? The local ads. See, the money's not in the national ads. I get a penny for a national ad. I get 10 cents for a local ad.
Mm.
Zip code ads are like 20. But what's your bill going to be? $3 a month? $10 a month? So people don't care at that point. They just want their placement because it's hyper targeted and they want that premium placement. So at the end of the day, somebody had mentioned to me, well, how are you going to get these national advertisers to buy ads from you? I really don't care. I want all the local guys. That's where the money is. If you think about it, there's if you can put 10 ads around a story, which you could get 12, but if you could put 10 ads around a story, if you're making a penny when the page gets clicked, the website produced a dime, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If you could put 10 local ads at all a dime, the page produced $1. It's literally 10 times the money. Last year we had 100 million page views.
Wow.
Do the math on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so at a dime, it's $100 million if I was sold out of hyperlocal. 100 million versus 10. There's your difference. So now you understand why I could care less about the national. It's not that they're filler ads is what they are. But it's really the local that sets you apart. And what the local businesses like about it is the fact that they have local people reporting news and they're buying and advertising, and that local person is driving local traffic to support that local business.
Mm-hmm.
There's the key. So this is what the future of news is. So the reason that we're having this conversation is because I don't care what it is, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Uber, you realize every one of the tech giants was funded by Silicon Valley, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. 100% of them get funded. There's none that weren't. Well, have you ever got a call from Silicon Valley like 20 years ago saying, hey, Andrew, I got $1 Facebook stuff?
No.
Okay. And here's the reason why. It's because all of it goes to the institutions, the BlackRocks and the Vanguards.
Right.
And that's just how it is. So, and the reason is it's a regulated industry. When you're selling private placements, you can only sell to what's called accredited investors, which basically means 99% of the population can't participate. The people with all the money are the ones that buy them. Okay. Silicon Valley is very good at identifying big opportunities. They bring in the big cash from the institutions. They bring in seasoned management teams that they're giving the CEO a few million a year to do something, and they scale these things globally and they bring in the proper cash. That's their job. And then they take them public, and then somebody like you or me can jump in when the stock's $20 or $30 on the public offering. If you don't know whose stock you're buying, I'm going to tell you right now, you're buying the institutional. You're buying some of BlackRock stock because they got into it at a dollar, and now they're selling it at 20 or 30 to you. Not all of it, just a portion. Maybe they'll take some of their chips off the table. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I asked you this before. We're doing something called an equity crowd fund, which I think you know what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so an equity crowd fund is a way where it's not like Give, Send, Go where you're just donating money. It's actually it's a platform that is owned by a brokerage firm, and it's subject to SEC and FINRA laws. So it's ran like a broker dealer because it is a broker dealer. But what it allows is it allows everybody to be able to participate, but it's based on your income. So you can never spend too much, because you've heard the stories of somebody had a business and they got this little old lady to mortgage her house because it was going to be worth a fortune, and then she loses her money. You can't do it. Okay. When an equity crowd fund, the equity crowd fund shuts you down at a specific number. So whatever, if you don't have to put in your income, but then they limit you at the least, which means you ain't spending more than $2,500. Okay. But it's a percentage of your income is how it works. That's how these work. So it keeps the system in check, which I really like. But also it allows for everybody to be able to participate, because as we talked before, it's my opinion that the reason we're in the mess we're in today is because of the media, right?
Right.
And and back in the 80s, there was over 500 independent news outlets. Today there's 6. Okay. Everybody saw the Sinclair Broadcasting video where you had the all the TV saying the same thing at the same time. Well,
Yeah.
where the hell you think they got that from? Think it was coincidence? No, corporate sent it to everybody. They were just reading it off a teleprompter. Okay. So those days are over. What our product does is just like the equity crowd funds, because they're going to make Silicon Valley obsolete, because now you don't need them anymore. Remember, there's 300 million people, there's billions of people across the globe that can make investments. Angel Studios, you're familiar with them?
No.
They raise capital. They're Christian-based, family-friendly movies. They got kicked out of Hollywood. You know how they do all their movies? Through equity crowd funds.
Oh,
They're
wow.
selling. Oh yeah. So it's like, screw you. I don't need you anymore. So
Yeah.
Hollywood is Hollywood is cooked. And why? Because of the internet. Why do I need to go to a Hollywood movie when I got Netflix? Which, by the way, if somebody said to me 20 years ago, Hollywood's not going to really produce any movies anymore because it gets to be replaced by Amazon and by Netflix and Hulu, and they're going to be producing movies and they'll have the distribution, I'd have told them they were nuts. Holy crap, was I wrong? I mean, now that's the new form. So Hollywood has become obsolete because who the hell wants to go to a movie theater? I mean, you may have some people that still do, but there's also some people that like to hold the newspaper. And there's some people that watch Fox News, right? Or ABC or NBC. The younger crowd doesn't give a rat's ass. They'd
No.
rather watch it on their phone.
Right.
Okay, so they're not interested in going to a movie theater. So that all that stuff is going away because of the internet. And so what I do is completely decentralize and democratize the news business. Basically, what we're doing is this is like the movie Back to the Future, because now it's going back to the old local news reporting, the way it used to be. And I don't know how familiar you are with how media works, but basically you have the editor, then you have the gatekeepers, which are the content control board, where when content comes in, they review it and they don't have to run your story. I'll give you a perfect example. Remember when Amy Robach was going to break the Epstein story, and
Yeah.
then somebody made a phone call from probably the White House and that whole thing was nixed?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not breaking this story. That can't happen anymore. And the reason is because the journalist is not only the journalist, but the editor and the content review board. They make the decision because all the onus is on them. They're responsible for their own content. So if you're a real journalist and you're doing real work, you don't have to worry about your story being changed. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's not going to be run by the paper. I have heard this story time and time again. Alex Newman from Liberty Sentinel,
Hmm.
he's the editor of the New American, even went further. He goes, Sam, not only can they not run it, because you work for the paper, they can take your story and completely twist it in the opposite direction. You can't say a thing about it. They can completely lie and manufacture something and your name goes on. I went, what? They go, yeah, you get a check from them, you work for them, it's their content, not yours. You're just writing it for them, and they can do whatever they want with it. I had no idea about that. So that ship has sailed. So with us, what we're building right now, like we have roughly 800 news reporters. You saw it, 799,
Yeah.
I think was the number.
Yep.
So I'm going to get that to 4,000 or 5,000. We're doing something called an equity crowd fund. And the reason is the reason I'm doing it is because I could easily go to the institutional players. Look, not all of them are bad, but they're the ones with all the money. But to me, if you're a news organization that's supposed to be by the people for the people, then Andy, shouldn't the people own the product?
Definitely.
Okay. So I said, you know what? This needs to go to we the people, and this movement needs to be funded by we the people, because ultimately, at the end of the day, what I do will replace the legacy media. No question. All you got to do is go to LinkedIn and type in freelance journalists and take a look at how many people are out of work. It's freaking 500,000 of them. Okay. I could show you that online. It's crazy. They have nowhere to go. I fill a void, is what I do. And there is nobody else. I'm it. So we're not raising capital so I could try and figure this out. We're raising capital to expand it at an accelerated pace. Let me explain what I mean.
Okay.
When Amazon, somebody bought the first book on Amazon, right? I don't know who it was, but somebody had to click purchase and buy something. Well, when that purchase came through, walk it through in your head. What happened? Somebody got an alert. Hey, we sold the book, Jeff. And Jeff goes, great, ship it out. Okay, guy goes, yeah, wraps it up and sends the book out. Next day, they might get 4 or 5 orders. Next day, 20 orders. Maybe a month from now, they got 3,000 orders. Can you wrap 3,000 things? No. Okay. So somebody called Jeff and said, hey, I can't, we got too many orders. In our case, those are called growing pains. You needed capital because you needed to be able to staff properly for the growth of the business. That's all this is. It's expansion capital, and it basically it it solves the problem of the growing pains that you're having, and as you expand and grow. So in our case, every piece of content that comes in, like you just saw, 4 of them were ready for approval.
Hmm.
Somebody has to look at those to make sure nobody's doing anything bad, but most people don't. But more importantly, what section does it go to? What geography does it go to? Because if you let them do it themselves, it's front page national news, everything. Somebody's literally gained front page national news. It doesn't matter what it is. So we have to distribute properly because we sell the ads. So we get right now around 300 news stories a day. Okay. And out of 800 people, basically a little less than half is that 80-20 rule, right? Or some people write something once a month, some people write something once a week. And I got people that do 3-4 stories a day. So it just depends. But as that scales up and we have 5 and 10,000 news reporters, I don't need to tell you the number's going to grow. Well, that's going to require a bigger infrastructure to be able to handle all that. It's called growing pains. Also, from the marketing side, right now I market and I spend about $20 a day on LinkedIn targeting those people, and I get about 100, 150 news reporters a month. They only release it to what you're paying. You follow me?
Yeah.
Like if you're spending 1,000 a day, you're going to get a whole hell of a lot more because they're going to release your ad to that many more people. So we're releasing it so that we can manage the people coming in, because at $20, if I jumped it to 200, instead of getting 3 reporters a day, multiply it by 10. Doesn't sound like a lot, but at the end of the month, you got 1,000.
Hmm.
Okay. At the end of 6 months, there's 6,000. That's now you're starting to get into holy crap. Okay. Which creates a whole nother set of problems. So we're doing the equity crowd fund simply because this is what is going to fuel the growth for this thing to take it to the next level. So I'm going to share my screen.
Go ahead.
By the way, let me I screwed up again. I have to take you to this website. Hold on. All right, here it is. All right, so you see this, right?
Yeah.
At the bottom of the page, you're going to see something that says become a citizen journalist. If there's anybody out there listening and they want to earn money being a citizen journalist, all they do is fill out this application. It comes to us, and then we activate it. You get instructions on how to use it, and you're either going to do well or you're not going to do well. The second piece is if you want to invest, there's something that says invest down here. You click that, and notice it takes you to something called Issuance Express. Issuance Express, this is my page, like if you had a GoFundMe page or something like that, or
Hmm.
Give, Send, Go.
Yeah.
Nico Ventures is the holding company that owns Your News. Let me put my glasses on so I could see this. So this is our investment information where you could read all about what we're doing. And then if you like what you see, it'll show you, for some reason on a website, you could see this box here, which shows you the dollar amount that's been raised, 351,000.
Hmm.
It shows you it's $2 a share, 200 minimum, and then total investment is 1,235,000. We basically have got 11 months left to finish this. I'll have it done this year. Okay. But this month, if you like what you see, you click invest, create an account on Issuance Express, which is a brokerage firm, and then you have to fill out a subscription agreement, and you could pay by either credit card or you could pay with ACH, which is a check, like an online check. And then that money goes into escrow with them. And then when we clear escrow, the money comes to us and you get your subscription agreement with your signature. But this one is $2 a share. The first 480,000, there's 25% bonus shares. So what I mean by that is if you spend 200 bucks, you're going to buy 100 shares. That's how it works. You get an additional 25. This was the prime of the pump. There's this number which shows 351,000 is, which I'll make bigger, is really more like 355. It just hasn't shown up on there because the ACHs are held up. So it's more. But once it reaches 480, the 25% go away, then it's $2. Once I finish this number right here, 1,235,000, we shut it down. I am within 2 weeks, I will have another offering up, and it'll be a $5 million capital raise, but the valuation, like this valuation, is $20 million. With the 25% bonus share at 16 million, the next one is going to be a $100 million valuation. It's how, when you're raising capital, it's how it works. Look up Facebook. We're in our Series A round of funding. We have the same scale as Facebook. Facebook Series A was 98 million. So say 100 million, and they raised $20 million on that. Then they went to 500. There's a chart you could look up on Google. It's real easy to find, but it'll show you the placements of how they do it. The reason that you're raising it is because by the time I'm done with this offering, in growth mode, I'll have 2 years if I don't sell an ad, which we sell advertising already. We generated 124,000 last year in ad revenue. And I'm going to be raising capital. But if I sell no ads and no stock, I have 2 years of runway to expand and grow. So the question is, Andy, am I going to have more news reporters or less news reporters after 2 years of marketing?
Way more.
No kidding. Probably going to have 40 or 50,000. Okay.
Yeah.
And so now the whole Facebook's value, besides their technology, if they have the tech with no traffic, they would have no users. So the value would be nothing. It's all based on a user base. If my value is completely based on the user base. So I'm worth more money if I have 50,000 news reporters than if I have 50. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this marketplace, I think you could see I'm changing over, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is LinkedIn, and I'm going to do Sales Navigator. This is Sales Navigator. You see the freelance journalists, United States?
Yep.
I'm going to click the link. Look to the right-hand side. See the marketplace?
Wow.
Andy, I remember when that was less than 50,000 people. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. There's almost that. And by the way, there's probably been 300,000 or 100,000 people that just quit. They said, screw it, right? They're doing something else. They're no longer freelance. These are people trying to get a job. Okay. Then you have, hold on. Let me make this smaller. You know, there's a lot of people in school, right? They call them student journalists.
Yeah.
Okay. Check this out. See it?
Wow.
Where are these kids going to get a job?
Not at the Buffalo News.
Not the Buffalo News or anybody else. Nobody's hiring is the point. So these people, what I need to do is migrate them from, call it here, over to my platform.
Right.
And this is where I showed you this already. Let me go to users. There's how many citizen journalists we currently have, 799. Subscribers would be PR firms, nonprofits. I have 4,000 of them. All these numbers are going to go up dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Those subscriber thing are going to go to a freaking 500,000 when that citizen journalist thing is at 10,000. Because there's more PR firms than nonprofits, right? You know, we don't pay those people. But what they do is they submit stuff like, there should be something in here from Miami, Orlando, Daytona. See here, Alex, Lawmakers Target New Jersey, homeschoolers. I'm looking for Dallas, Fort Worth, Miami here. No, that's not it. Hold on. Church and State, Miami. This is Adrian Mazzone is a PR firm, and they have Stonewall Uprising reenactment. It's something going on in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. It's a local event. So I don't pay them. It's a marketing piece, but I don't care. It goes in my event section. So we She posted it. We ran it to the Miami market, and it expires the night of the event, like after it's done. That's pretty much it. Let me stop sharing. So the equity crowd fund, what it does is I'm dispersing my company to the people. And then I already have the public exit put in place because I hired a guy that's actually taken 4 of his own companies public and 13 others. He does it for a living. So he's taken 17 companies public. And that's the cool part. So I already have the exit built in.
Mhm.
The next step is we do this round at $2, followed up by roughly a $10 round. Don't quote me because the stock prices change. So it might be 890 or 1120. I mean, it'll be in that range, but it's going to be a much higher valuation. But now what happens is I have 2 years. The train's left the station. Basically, I've gassed up. I'm all filled. Okay. That's when the value goes through the roof. And now you'll start bringing in money at a much higher value, much higher valuation. Actually, it'll be easier money to raise that than the 1 million. And the 1 million is not very hard, especially since I've already sold what, a quarter of it or 30% of it or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, 30%. I sold a little more, 32% or something. So that's it. So there's 3 ways to participate this. 1, you could be a reader. 2, you could be a contributor, either monetized or non-monetized. If you want to be a news reporter, run around covering local stories, if you're already at the high school football game and you have a passion for writing, start reporting. If you don't have a job, okay, you're going to get an author page. It's just like YouTube. Nobody went to YouTube, created a video, and made $1 million freaking dollars on the first video. You build your content. It's how social media works. As you start gathering more information, each link is a business. The guy that has 5,000 videos on YouTube makes more than the guy with 5. Want to know why? Because there's more crap to click on and watch. With me, it's the same thing, but you also have to produce good, compelling content. Let's put it this way. You're going to have more people reading the high school football game than you will somebody's Little League game. It is more appeal.
Mhm.
Remember, if you're in a market like mine or like Buffalo, how many families have kids that go to school in Buffalo? Everybody, right?
Yeah.
And if you're connected, grandma and grandpa, okay? I want to know about my grandson's football game. Also, you may have went to school there. You may follow it. The point is that it has mass appeal. That's my school. That's where I went to school. My kids in that school, my grandkids in that school. So there's literally tens of thousands of people that are interested in that stuff. And you'll end up becoming the go-to person. I remember when years ago, I used to think, Andy, I go, God, why would somebody be in school? What a horrible time to be in journalism school. I mean, like, who the hell's going to hire you? And then one day I woke up and went, you idiot. This is like the best time in history. And it just dawned on me, the old guard has controlled everything for years. And so the paper, you probably used to get the Buffalo newspaper years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so you have the same news people publishing like the sports writer and the politics writer and everything else. And there were never any real jobs, right? You could be a little stringer to run off. They'll tell you to go cover this little event. Maybe they need somebody. For the most part, there were no real jobs to get up there. None of those people are going to survive on new media, Andy. None of them.
No.
When the paper goes, so do they. Bye-bye. It's over, which gives birth to new media, which means all new people are going to replace them. If anything, being in journalism school today has got to be the best time ever because you're going to be the person who takes the place of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a paradigm. It's, and never in history has the old company or the old guard been part of the new. Nobody ever that created the horse and buggy, or we're part of the horse and buggy, we're part of the automobile. Same thing with the telegraph. None of them went to the telephone. I mean, they were all, the telegraph is going to be the thing of the future. I saw the documentary on that. Bell went to the telegraph people and said, you guys need to invest in this because this is ultimately going to be the next form of communication. And they laughed him out of the room. So what did he do? He franchised it. Southern Bell, Pac Bell,
Oh yeah.
Illinois Bell, all the different bells, right? So those people got it. They saw it. The legacy media is going to be gone. If you don't believe me, LinkedIn has 500,000 people that'll tell you differently. Okay. 500,000. You'd have to be a moron not to get this one. I mean, this is in your face as much as it could be. So all I'm doing is bringing them all to one world here and creating one massive media giant,
Hmm.
you know? And so now what happens is it's not so much to control the narrative, it's to make sure that the narrative is allowed to get out, no matter what it is. You know, all those people that get kicked off of YouTube for telling the truth, really? Okay. Think about how many lives could have been saved if those if those people were able to broadcast and get their message out. You know, I have a friend of mine I play golf with. He was healthy as a horse until he got the vaccine, and now he has heart problems all the time. You know, and he even says, I have vaccine injuries. He goes, if I would have known that this stuff was going to hurt me, I would have never done it.
Right.
So it's nuts.
They wouldn't
So
want that news out there.
they didn't want it out there. So that's the nature of the beast. So it's all going to be fixed. What's going to happen is what I do is inevitable. It's going to happen whether I do it or not. I mean, look, if history will tell you anything, there's never a void that an entrepreneur doesn't fill. Okay. If you don't believe me, why do you think Rumble exists?
Right.
Okay. People got kicked off of YouTube. What nobody knows is Rumble started in 2013. Nobody knows that except me. Okay. The only reason they were introduced, oh, look, Rumble, like it miraculously appeared. No, it's been around forever. It was dying on the vine because that was the 10,000-pound gorilla, YouTube. And so basically, YouTube just shook a few fleas off, which is about 20,000 people, you being one of them.
Yeah.
And those people migrated to Rumble. And Rumble, by the way, has, I haven't checked in a while, but it's about a $3 billion market cap.
Wow.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, they've only been public for less than 2 years. $3 billion. And it's not like they can grow much bigger. I mean, they can still have room for growth, but everybody wants to be on YouTube. And the reason they want to be on YouTube, I'm just going to tell you, YouTube has 100 million users to their 200,000, which means YouTube has literally billions of people to their million. And YouTube has all the advertisers to their small little handful, right?
Mhm.
Which means that the guy that was making 50,000 a month over here went to 1,000 a month over here. Don't you think he'd rather be back over there getting 50?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my point. So if YouTube ever decided to be woke, there would pretty much be no Rumble. And that's not an insult to Rumble. It's hard to compete with the 10,000-pound gorilla. They basically control the marketplace. You know, I mean, if you don't believe me, set up a search engine, see if you could compete with Google. Why don't you try doing it going up against eBay? Okay, good luck. You just can't. Once people get established, that's where they are, and that's how it's going to be. And you know, even if you look at institutional money on Rumble, it's all BlackRock and Vanguard money. I don't know if you know that. It's not their fault. It's not like they called up BlackRock and Vanguard and sold it to them. It's because whenever you're going public and you're using like a SPAC or doing a traditional IPO, the brokerage firms don't call you or me. They call BlackRock and Vanguard, and they bring in the money from them. That's how it works.
Hmm.
Remember, they've got all the money. It makes it a lot quicker. You know, when you're getting checks for 5 and 10 and 20 million from people, it moves a lot faster than, I just got $50 from Andy. So it's just how it works. So uh, this is why they do it. So to me, the equity crowd fund is certainly a harder way to do this, but it's proper. And this keeps it out of the hands of the institutions. When you go public, you can't stop them from buying. But basically, I'm reversing the whole thing. You're buying the cheap stuff. The next one round of funding is still the cheap stuff. When it goes public, they're going to spend 30, 40, and $50. Basically, I'm flipping the switch, which means they might be pissed off that they couldn't get the cheap stuff and not participate. Good. Because I can tell you right now, the public's going to eat this up. This is, come on. I mean, this is the product that replaces the legacy media. Game over.
Oh yeah.
So, and user base, you could have millions. And then expansion across the globe, because that's the plan here. It's not just sticking in the United States and Canada, it's taking it across the globe. So it's going to require way more than $5 million. It'll require, hundreds of millions of dollars, but I'm not really worried about that. So we'll do that. We might do a 75 after this one, or we might do a public offering. but it's going to get done. If I don't do this, somebody will, and it's very important that this doesn't get into the hands of the wrong people.
It's very important.
Yeah. So that's why, to me, I think it's, I don't believe I should own this. I don't believe you should own this. I believe we should own
Yeah, that's very
it.
important.
That's the most important piece, is just distributing the product to the people, so the people have the power, not the federal government and not the institutions, which the federal government can control.
Yeah,
You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Or in the case of USAID, giving them billions of dollars of our tax money, and that's the control.
yeah,
So now you grasp how big this is.
definitely. It's totally awesome way to raise funds for what you're doing. And do you have any new areas of content you're going to be offering?
As we expand, I didn't get into, like, this is really a roll-up model. So the reason we use Nico Ventures as the holding company,
Hmm.
like News Corp, is because I plan on making acquisitions of verticals. So a vertical would be somebody who has a horse racing website. So keep in mind, I'm not in the news business. I'm in the platform business, the news platform business.
Hmm.
So like, just like if you and I were developers and we built the football stadium, we can't play in the NFL, okay? But we own the stadium. So what we do is we call the teams, we bring them in to play each other, and that's the draw. So people show up to watch the games, and then we go down and we sell the tickets, and when they come in, all the hot dogs and whatever it is, the Cokes and the beers. We're in the stadium business. We're not in the news business, right? And
Yeah.
same thing in the football thing. We're really, because if the football game ain't playing, I might say, Andy, let's call a rock band in, or a country music star, and let's fill the seats so we can sell more concessions and more tickets. I mean, that's the business we're in, right? Let's
Hmm.
call it the way it is. So, what I plan on doing is making acquisitions of different verticals. So let's say, like, I don't know the first thing about horse racing news. You don't either. Okay. You may like horse racing, but when was the last time you reported on horse racing? There's people that do, but they're very niche. There's no scale to them. And so when you acquire these people, you're redirecting all their traffic, their horse racing traffic, to your horse racing page, but you're localizing it. You're creating a better product for the reader. If I'm talking about for our readers,
Hmm.
you're creating a better product for the advertisers because they could target. You're giving this guy a bigger exit strategy because the whole is worth more than the parts. He's a part. So I can acquire 10 or 20 of him. Doesn't matter. I'm talking one horse racing, one boxing, one home and garden, one political. You can do all these different categories, but now collectively it becomes massive horsepower. And as the advertisers come in, he's going to be picking up ads he never got before, because somebody that sells jewelry in Kentucky who he never calls, a little local store, goes, I want to be around horse racing. That's now an advertiser for horse racing, which makes his revenues grow.
Hmm.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's very cool.
So it's an acquisition model, a roll up model, and that's when you go public. So part of the public thing is you don't have to pay for it, you just give them equity, and that guy becomes the editor in chief for that vertical.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much the model. So for those of you who want to invest, I would do it in this round. I would try not to do it on the next one because the next one's going to be way more expensive.
Yeah. Wow, it's really exciting concept you have going here, Sam.
Thanks, Danny. I spent a lot of time figuring this thing out. Now we're just in gear to bring it to the next level. So the next level, let me finish this money and watch how many news reporters we start bringing on, because it's just a function of marketing. If instead of spending $20 a day, spend 300 a day. Watch what happens. Because I'm also going to be working on other platforms. I'm sure there's places where these journalists are, they congregate in social forums and stuff like that. So we'll have to bring in people that are, marketing experts to do this stuff. We do it on our own, and we're capable of, I could easily bring in 5,000 by the end of the year myself without doing much of anything. But, we really want to take this to another level. Same thing with advertisers. So you're going to start marketing to the small businesses and let them buy an ad on a self-service platform. Here's the plan. Here's how it works. Give them a $25 or $50 coupon to try it out, and let them log in, create an account, put in their credit card information, and put in their promo code.
Hmm.
And you're going to spend money to make money is what it's going to be. But at the end of the day, you're building a massive customer base, and then you can market to that customer base. So if somebody doesn't renew, maybe 3 months from now, you say, Andy, um, here's if you spend $100, we'll give you $100 credit. But the system does it. You just type into the system what you want, it sends the messages. Let them log into their account and do everything themselves. So that's all in the works. It'll end up being done. I know exactly what to do. It just takes the proper resources to do it. So that therein lies the capital raise. So anybody wants to participate, go to yournews.com, go down to the bottom of the page, click invest. You could read all about it, formulate your own conclusion, and that money is going to be going for a good use.
Oh, great, Sam. I'm sure my viewers are going to be very interested in that. And
Yeah, well, I hope so.
they'll
Me
tell their
too.
friends, and their friends will tell their friends, and that's how word of mouth spreads.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Sam. Thanks for being on. And I will get this up on YouTube too, because I made a
Okay.
third channel, and hopefully they'll allow me to post this.
Awesome. Thanks, bud. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Sam. Bye bye.
Bye.